Hare Krishna. Activism is my rent for living on the planet. Alice Walker. The idea of activism, of actively contributing something constructive for the overall well-being of others to help make the world a better place. This idea of activism is increasingly catching on in the world. Whereas a few years or a few decades ago, people were obsessively individualistic. Now, I and I alone. That individualism is still there, but that individualism today has been complemented with activism. And thus, we have a situation where people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They want to contribute to some worthy cause. And this is indicative of a rise in consciousness. And in this quote, Walker uses a metaphor that we are living on this planet, and the activism, the activities that we do for constructive contribution, they are like the rent. Now, if you consider this metaphor from the underlying worldview that is prominent in today's world, which is the materialistic worldview, then from that worldview's perspective, this earth is just a chunk of matter which by a lucky accident became conducive for life. And we ourselves are nothing more than bags of protoplasm, which is also a result of a lucky accident. So therefore, the earth does not belong to anyone within the materialistic worldview, and therefore the idea of paying rent, it's just a quaint metaphor. But if you consider an alternative worldview, the worldview offered by the great spiritual wisdom texts of the world, then we can see this metaphor as having an ontological foundation as well as a practical direction. So the Bhagavad Gita, for example, explains that God, who can be known by various names in different traditions, who is known by the name Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, God is the proprietor of everything. Everything belongs to God, all of existence. And that means even the planet Earth belongs to God. And that means that actually we are tenants on this planet. Whatever we live, wherever we live, whatever resources we take from the planet, it's all a part of the tenancy. Sometimes when we get an apartment complex, especially in the Western world, then certain basic amenities come with the apartment complex. For example, an oven, a refrigeration system, a ventilation system, all these come inbuilt with the apartment. So like that, our basic necessities are provided in this planet. We need water, we need air, we need light, we need food. All this is provided by nature. So now the another implication of the metaphor of rent is that we understand that if we are in a rented house, we won't stay there permanently. It's not our house. So similarly, if we understand that we are here temporarily, then while we are here, we pay some rent, we make some contribution. And for example, there is environmental activism. A lot of people are increasingly concerned about the alarming disruption of the natural ecosystems that comprise the fragile biosphere in which we presently live. This whole disruption is characterized by terms such as climate change. And a lot of people move towards simple living, towards more eco-friendly living, and they are activists for that cause. The Gita wisdom tradition appreciates such activism and also gives it a spiritual foundation. It explains that Actually, the reason why we pollute the rivers by indiscriminately exploiting natural resources is because we have a polluted heart. Because our consciousness is polluted by the conception that material gratification, material domination, this is the way to pleasure. To the extent we understand that there is a better way to seek happiness, to the extent we gain access to processes by which we can find higher happiness, to that extent we will be able to resist and reject the lures of the materialistic pleasures that lead to the degradation of the environment and eventually to the problem of the environmental crisis. So spirituality gives us a tangible ontological foundation for our zeal for activism. We understand that we are parts of a whole. So the absolute truth, God is the whole and we are His parts. And as His parts, we are meant to contribute. So if our activism is based on our own conceptions of what needs to be done and how it is to be done, we may make some difference. But if we can give our activism a spiritual foundation, we understand that we are parts of a whole and that whole has made arrangements for the holistic balance and development of everything. So if we just harmonize with the whole and we cleanse ourselves and we help others cleanse themselves of the contaminating desires that make them act disharmoniously, then our activism can have tangible and transformational and sustainable fruits. So whatever it is that we feel inspired to do to make a change in the world, we can do it with spiritual consciousness. We can do it by first understanding our spiritual identity and situating ourselves in the stability and the serenity that comes from experiencing spiritual happiness. And then we direct that zeal towards making a change not just in the world, but making a change in the consciousness of the people who are going to affect the world. And thus, we can pay the rent in such a way that we live in a contributive way in the world, and eventually, when we leave this world, we have fully paid our debt and we get liberated to live a life of eternal harmony with the whole. Thank you. Hare Krishna.